right. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's September 22nd, 2021. Welcome to Vlog Episode 3. I am Minsu Choi. I'm a Doctor of Ministry student doing semiotics and future studies at Portland Seminary. So glad to be with you. This vlog is a journey of my project dissertation. Welcome to the channel. Some of you might be viewing this for the very first time. I'm so glad that you're here. Just a selfish plug to subscribe and hit that notification bell and like this video. We got all bow down to the algorithms nowadays, so it really helps the algo feed the algo. Today, I want to talk about a journey into the creative process and how I've gotten to this point in my life and how I see church and ministry. Just a reminder, the inevitable church is really about understanding how to utilize new mediums, new techniques, new strategies in order to be the church and to serve people, to serve communities, to preach about Jesus, the good news of Christ, as well as just to be effective in discipleship as well as evangelism. In this vlog, I want to talk about the principle of turning libraries into studios. I want to tell you a story about how I got to this idea. And I know that this is an idea that Dr. Sweet preaches a lot in his week-to-week classes. This is something that I've heard from him consistently throughout the last couple years, but it's definitely an idea that I've had even before coming into the program. And it just only affirmed my conviction about this idea. And the story that I want to tell you is kind of the story of the first medium of art and creativity that I really came to appreciate. I grew up in the 90s, and what I grew up with is the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, the N64 is probably when it was just permanently burned into my brain that I really love the artistry and the craft and the beauty and just the mystery around game making, video game making. And it was definitely the first like art form. We call it an art form today, but probably back then it was more of just like a hobby. It was just like a game, right? But it's really become a medium for art and expression, and it has its own award shows and things like that. But video games became a part of my early life. You look back and you realize, man, there's this whole universe that was being pioneered in the 80s and 90s. And today, when we think about video games, we think about Twitch and streaming, like live streaming video games. We think about competitive gaming. It's an e-sport now, and you can actually make a living out of it. I remember talking to one of my friends who is a pastor that when he was growing up, he played games like Myst and Doom, and he saw these things as like a way to pass the time. It's not something to be considered very seriously, and in a lot of ways, the concern around video gaming, especially in the news back then, was, man, is this influencing our younger generation in really, really bad ways? It turns out all of those things were probably misguided, and it was just really premature to judge what video games could do, what they could become, how they would be integrated into our culture. But I bring that up because I'm 35 now, and every once in a while I'll still buy a video game on a PS5 or something like that, or a PS4, and play it. And one of the things that I don't even think about that someone pointed out to me is that whenever I boot up a game, it doesn't matter what kind of game it is. It's something that I'm already familiar with. I've, over the years, gained what I call gaming fluency, gaming literacy. And that's really what I wanted to talk about here in the first part of this video. When we think about adopting new mediums, e.g., filmmaking or podcasting or TikToking or vlogging, we forget that in order to really understand that medium and navigate it well and become competent at it, it takes a lot of time. And for me, playing video games for 30 years of my life, even when I pick up a brand new game that's a brand new genre, maybe it has some really novel concepts in it, I still feel like the time to acclimate to that video game is very, very short for me, because I've played a wide variety of genres, a wide variety of kinds of video games, from puzzles to role-playing games to action games to fighting games to simulation games that are like flying or driving. And so it's really, really easy for me to pick up a video game, very much so. Now, when you compare the time that it takes me compared to my wife, who wasn't really into video games when she was younger and hasn't played a lot of video games in her life, you can clearly see the difference. She has no idea what's going on. She gets disinterested very, very quickly. And it's just really funny to try to see her try to navigate even like basic controls, right? I'm not making fun of her. That's just not her thing. And she would never boast about it. But it's a reality. And what I'm suggesting is that, we all watch TV, right? We all watch movies. We all enjoy audio, music, podcasting, but we never really put ourselves in a position of like, well, how would I make that? This is very apparent in film. Film is often a medium that is popularly adopted, but very few people relatively have any sort of film literacy. They don't know why the filmmakers, the directors, the editors, the producers chose to show that story in that way, how they framed the scene, how they chose color and lighting and effects. Those things are often just not even thought about. But that's a really important idea when it comes to beginning the process of becoming a competent user of any new medium. The reason why I bring this up is because one of the things about this channel that might be a misconception is that, I'm a videographer or filmmaker first, and I'm trying to squeeze in how ministry is done on top of that. That's actually not the case. It's actually the complete opposite. I would say that I see myself as a person who is called into ministry, to do pastoral ministry first as my calling and my vocation. And what I've seen is this need to just engage and confront these visual mediums as a way forward. It's just something that I cannot avoid. Now, when you're looking at this scene, like, I'm just sitting here at a table and talking to you. That seems like a really easy thing to do. We kind of do that every day. But there's a camera in front of me, and I've had to think about this light and this set and this table. There's a microphone right here. There's a light right here. There's a lot of things that I'm thinking about when I'm making these videos. And it's not to brag, and it's not to just point out, and it's not to do anything other than to tell you that every second of this video has a lot of thought put into it. And so going back to the idea of turning libraries into studios is that the reason why we do that is not just because it's the new trend and it's a fad that we can do and just, we can waste a little bit of time and try it out. I really do think it is the way forward for the church. One of the reasons why I got into videography and photography about 15 years ago is because I noticed the power and the creativity potential of utilizing these tools, not only for self-expression, but for communication. That was my first draw into these things. It wasn't because I felt like I was an artist in that way. I never saw myself as like a potential director of full feature length films. I never saw myself as making money primarily through like wedding photography or portrait photography or just any sort of like creative photography. I just saw it as a way to connect with people, because what I understood about the medium was that these people that I was watching, for some reason, I felt really connected to them. And any modern individual who has either released a book or has done some great research or is brilliant in their field, they all somehow utilize video and visual images in order to enhance their platform, their message, their manifesto. And so I see this integration of the visuals as a necessity for doing any sort of community building, any sort of meaningful communication in order to make any sort of impact on something greater than just our inner circles. And that's why I get really pumped up about this idea of integrating the new mediums that are coming forward nowadays. In our program, the last couple of years, we've seen kind of the rise of TikTok. We've seen Facebook and Twitter and Instagram still hang around, but there might be just new companies and new ways to share our lives on the horizon. Social media is not a fad. Just like how video games, we think video games rots the mind or something like that back in the 90s. Today, you can actually build a career and make money playing video games. There's speed running. There's video game lore. You can be just a super fan and just make some really cool content about a specific IP and make money that way. There's just so many ways you can just lean into the things that you're passionate about and monetize it, create communities around it. These aren't artificial things. These are real ways to connect with human beings. And I think the church is behind the times when it comes to realizing this potential. And yet, what I see as a great need, no matter what niche, no matter what subcultures, is a need for answers to the big questions in life, those human questions that leave us wanting and leave us dissatisfied. And this is where I think the church can come in and start dialoguing and entering into the marketplace of ideas that's already crowded, but that is all the more reason to go there and start developing these processes and this literacy about some of these mediums. And so this is the last part that I wanted to talk about, which is my first and foremost love is to minister the gospel of Jesus Christ to people. I really believe that the message of Jesus is the most valuable, the most transformative, the most freeing, the most fulfilling message that the world has ever heard. And all I'm really trying to do is to look at everything that is before me, realizing that to do this today, to do what I'm doing right here, 20 years ago would have been an impossible barrier, right? Think about the video quality, think about the audio quality, think about the production value of all these things. 20 years ago, this would have costed millions of dollars, right? Only like network television and a select few production companies would have access to this type of gear. And yet, I'm doing this in my office space at home. I'm doing this as a solo operator, independent filmmaker, and I'm uploading it free to YouTube, a service that I have access to. It doesn't cost me money to share with you this content. And we have the internet now, and I can share this with you anywhere in the world. That potential, I'm just so curious about it. That's why I'm so focused on it, and that's why I go back to the original thing that we started with. This is why I think we need to turn libraries into studios. Libraries represent to me the pinnacle of the print age. But now I think the call is to take the libraries that we've cultivated, and then we start thinking about creating, not just consuming, not just becoming experts so that we can feel good about ourselves, but bending the knee and learning a new discipline and figuring out how to turn our knowledge and the things that we've acquired so that others can benefit from it as well. That's what I think a studio affords. It's this shift from being consumer-oriented, which we knock social media for all the time. We think social media is a platform for consumption. It's only a platform for consumption for people who don't create. For all the creators, for all the influencers, for all those who have a great idea or a creative idea and they want to share it with the world, it's a platform that allows them to share their message in a way that has never been done before in history. Whether we think we're creative or not, whether we think we're an artist or not, this is now accessible to all of us. And so I want to end with this. My prayer for myself and others is to realize that it doesn't matter whether we think these things are hidden behind like prerequisite gifts or not. I haven't really thought through that, but I'll tell you part of my story, which is I don't consider myself relatively more creative or an artist or even anointed to do these things more than anyone else. I think this is ubiquitous and accessible to all. And if you have a story and if you have a message, you can do any and all of this. And you can do it in unique ways, in authentic ways that God has ordained for you and for you alone. And so I love that idea of us being called into this era and this time. Anyways, that was just a thought that I had today as I'm thinking about another video that I want to create. I hope that that's an encouragement. I hope that that was thoughtful. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next vlog. Have a wonderful week. Peace.